Hey, it's Mega, aka the Art Messiah, here to save you from your art sins. Welcome back to another art tutorial. If you've ever had trouble drawing the eyes at different angles, then this video is going to be for you. Before we go ahead and jump in today's lesson, I did want to shout out King Tenta, who helped me create that animation that you just saw at the beginning of this video. He's a really dope artist. He did all the final animation for that, so I'm going to leave links down in the description below so you guys can check him out. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this video. I want to teach you guys how to draw eyes, and not just manga eyes or realistic eyes. I want to show you guys the fundamentals and the basics, so no matter what style you choose, you can draw eyes accurately and they will look well and good no matter what angle you draw them in. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So in the previous video, we were creating the mask for the face, and I told you guys that we would talk about how to draw each feature, and now we are beginning to do that, starting with the eyes. Okay, so let me go ahead and create a new layer so we can go ahead and get started, and just kind of come down to a blank space in the page. Now the first thing I want to teach is just the structure of the eye, and what most people do, the number one sin that people will make is that they'll just come in and they'll start drawing the eyelid, then they'll draw the eye in, you know, add shading, add in an eyebrow, and they think they're all good to go. Now there's no problem with that, but we do need to understand that there is structure behind this, and that it's not just as simple as drawing the eyelids. We need to understand that the eye is actually a sphere, and we can represent a sphere by a circle. Okay, and the reason that it's important to understand that it's a sphere is because the eyelids actually just kind of rest on top of this sphere in the circle, right? Okay, so if you remember from my form video, basically we can show the form and the shape of the sphere by drawing these curved lines, right? Okay, and so these eyelids are going to always follow basically the form of the sphere, and that's why it's important to start with this circle, because it represents that sphere. So if we drop in our eyelids now from there, we get to see, right, that it kind of just follows that form, and so now we have something to actually build off of, right? And then again, we can add in our iris, and then we can add in our pupil, and if we add a shine, we can obviously add in a shine, or whatever the case may be, right? But we are actually building this off of structure now in form, instead of just drawing the eyelid willy-nilly. And this is going to be very important when we start to draw the eye at different angles. So for example, we can start off with that same circle and that same sphere, and imagine that this time, we're looking at the character from below it, and or from below them. And so the center line is no longer at the center. The center line is now being curved upwards, okay? So imagine we're looking from beneath the character and we're looking up at this eye. Now this pupil and iris is coming up towards the top of the eye, right? And the eyelid, remember, is going to follow the form of the sphere. So even that bottom eyelid, right, is going to follow that form. And I'm going to kind of draw this out again so you can see exactly what's happening with the eyelid. So notice how, in this first one, this bottom eyelid was coming down like a smiley face, but when we're looking from below, right, think of the worm eye view, and it's sad, and so we're getting the sad face, right, because you're a worm. And the eyelids actually will look something like this. And this is the number one thing that beginners get wrong, okay? And they think that even though you're looking at it from below, you still draw the eyelid down there. You don't, okay? So that's why it's so important to start with this sphere. Okay? Another way to kind of demonstrate this concept, right, is to draw this eye from the side view to show how this form looks and how these eyelids really work. Okay, so we draw on a circle again. The eyelid starts about halfway when we're looking at it in profile, right? And just imagine this eyelid is again wrapping around the circle, coming to this other side and stopping at the other halfway mark on the other side, okay? And the same thing for the bottom eyelid. Okay. And then you have like this little skin flap right here when the eye opens, so I kind of like to show that sometimes. Same thing for down here, right? And notice the curvature of the eyeball. Notice that it's not just flat like this. Some people will draw it flat in, and it's not. You have some curvature of the eyeball, and so that's why it's important to start off with this circle. And notice how our pupil is getting flattened like a pancake, okay? It's because of the perspective, but it matches, still matches that form, okay? So now that you guys kind of understand the form and the structure of the eye, you're probably wondering, okay, that's great and all, but how am I going to apply this to an actual drawing? How am I going to find this in space? How am I going to draw two eyes together? And so I'm going to take you through at least 2 demos, and I want to keep this video short so people can kind of get the information that they need and keep on going. But we're going to be drawing with the mask that we've already created, okay? And I have a few more concepts that we need to develop. Okay, so we know how to draw the eye, but we don't know how to place it into the face, okay? So to place it into the face, I'm gonna switch to my blue color. There's 2 things that I like to do. One is that we need to understand that the eyes fit within the eye sockets. And so for this, I want you to actually draw the eye sockets in for the mask that you drew. So the top of the mask, right, this top of this green line should represent your eye socket, and your eye socket shape looks something like this. However, it doesn't have to be like perfectly accurate or anything like that. Just go ahead and get the general shape. Now what's important to notice for this is that that this is a 3/4 view, and we're kind of doing that worm's eye view thing because we're looking up at this character. Okay, and when this happens, the eye socket that's farthest away from us is going to be flattened like a little pancake, right? But the height should be relatively the same as the height over here. Okay, so now that we have the eye socket down, it's a little bit easier to place our eye because we know the eye needs to fit within our eye socket, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So let's go ahead and draw in a very light sphere to represent the eye, and that it fits in here. And the same thing over here. And notice that the sphere goes back into space, right? So the eye socket is actually going to be covering that bone, right? That bone that comes out is going to be covering this eye that's going back into space. But we're going to draw through for right now, okay? And so something like this. So this is how you place your eyes as spheres. Now, do I always place the spheres? No, but it's really important to understand the structure of the sphere so that when you are drawing the eyelids, you can draw those curved lines in the correct direction. Okay. So we have a pretty good structure now, right? And sometimes I like to draw like this little mask looking thing around the eyelid. If you've ever seen, or not around the eyelid, around the eye sockets. If you've ever seen like the Incredibles, you know they wear these masks, right? That's how I kind of like to think about this eye area, is that they have these masks and then, you know, they have their little cutouts for their eyes, okay? So we're gonna drop down the opacity. Now we understand the structure. Let's go ahead and apply what I taught you earlier in this video. Okay, so we need to draw the center lines of the eye in order to get the perspective correct and in order to get the curve of the eyes correct. So let me go ahead and show what that means. So let's switch back to my blue color actually really quickly. The center line should match this center line that we drew earlier. See how the center line compares to this red circle, right? It's at the very edge. Look at that relationship between this space over here and this space over here. Okay, so we need to do the same thing. Since this is the same perspective, we need to do the same thing for the eyes as well. So center line should be right there. I drew it too close before. Okay, center line should be right around there. And then check out this line. This is our horizontal center line, and see how that distance compares to this distance, okay? And it doesn't have to be like perfectly accurate. You just need to get a general idea. Okay, and the same thing over on this side as well. Center line and center line. Okay. And it's okay if it looks funny for right now. I'm just showing you guys the structure and how to get the stuff right every single time. Now we're gonna do the draw overs. So we can start off with our pupil. And the top of our eyelid, remember, follows the curve of that sphere. That's why we drew that sphere in. Follows the curve of that sphere. And the bottom of the eyelid also needs to follow the curve of that sphere. That's it. You don't have to think about anything else while drawing the bottom of the eyelids. You just need to think about your curvature of your lines, okay? And the form of that sphere underneath it, okay? And remember, this bone right here is covering some of the eye. So like the eye would start back here, but this bone is going to be in front of it. So you're only going to see to this part, okay? And then we draw in the bottom of the eyelid as well. And we don't really get to see, so here's the important thing right here, that we don't actually get to see these two lines connect. Because guess what? The eye actually pops out before the eyelid gets to reconnect somewhere back here. Okay, so let me just do a quick demo of that, just so you guys really understand what I'm talking about. When you're drawing the eye in the 3/4 view, right? Center line, center line. So here's a 3/4 view, and our eye is sitting right here, and our eyelid starts right here. And imagine that this is going all the way around this circle, like you're cutting it, right? Like you're cutting this basketball. So the eyelid is going to stop back here. However, as you can see, since it's wrapping around, can you guys see that? Can you guys see how it's wrapping around this sphere, kind of like that? And so since it's wrapping around, right, this part of the eye actually comes out in front of this black line. This heavy black line right here no longer becomes seen. And so that's why when you're drawing this eye in 3/4, you're actually going to see, and I need to make this much bigger and a little bit more flattened. You're actually going to see you know, the white of your eye and not the rest of your eyelid. And so your eyelashes may do something like this, right? So I just hope that that concept makes sense of the overlap. We really need to understand the overlap and perspective in that, okay? So we do the same thing with this eye over here. We can go ahead and shade in the eye a little bit, just so we get an idea. Draw on the iris. Nothing too fancy, okay? And this bone comes out in front of it. Okay, so at this point, you have the perspective, you have the structure, but you may need to do some adjustments depending if you placed your sphere slightly wrong, and that's okay if you did or didn't. Mine were placed a little bit too high, I noticed, so I'm just going to drag this down just a little bit, just so they're like that instead. And this tutorial is not so much about the eyelashes, but I'll go ahead and draw them in as well. And the eyelashes are really easy because they just follow that top part of the eye socket, right? And they just curve right along. And they follow that same curve of the eyes, right? Everything's being curved this way because we're drawing it from the bottom. Okay, so say that's your first pass because you're getting the eye location and stuff. And then what you can do is you can turn the opacity down and you can do another draw over. And this time you can like maybe stylize the eye a little bit more. Maybe your character's eyes are like a little bit bigger, or they have like more angled lines, or whatever the case may be. And so you may want to come in here and just change the eye just so it matches your character, your actual character. But you need to keep that curvature in mind, that you shouldn't change that curvature no matter how you're stylizing it, you know. And then this is just the cleanup process. Okay. Alright, so let's do this one more time. And this time we're going to be looking downwards. And this one I'm going to do a little bit quicker. So again, switching over to my blue, we draw on our eye socket. Okay, remember following that mask. We draw on our eye socket. If it's 3/4, it gets squished. But remember, the height remains the same. Just gets squished like a little pancake, right? And from here, we can draw in our actual eye. Okay. and the eye fits in that socket. Okay, you need to draw through these forms. Then we draw the center line for the eye. Okay, the center line for the eye. And from there, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. We can reduce the opacity, switch to our black, and now we can draw over. So notice now that the lines are actually being angled in a smiley face, right? Because we are doing bird's eye view now. So just notice how the curve is now just switching based on the view that we're doing. And so that's the only thing that you need to keep in mind. And I know it's gonna seem really funky at first. I'm sure you're probably used to drawing eyes in a very like same way each time, right? Same shape. But the eye shape changes only depending on your perspective. And that's how you determine the curve of the eye, right? So just notice how these curves match the curves of this sphere that I created, okay? And it is really that simple. And what I want you guys to do, and we're gonna cover this in the live stream that I do when I'm, you know, going more into the demos. I want you guys to observe from real life. Okay. And then if we need to, you know, do it again. I'm sorry, this one's a little small. I should maybe blow it up. But yeah, so now that you have the basic thing though, you can always minimize it in terms of I'm also going to decrease the opacity of this a little bit. Now you can come back through and just stylize, right? Or make any corrections that you need to make. Alright, so I'm going to do this real quick, and then we're going to do some closing words. And we're going to go ahead and end it for this video. Okay, notice how this eyebrow, again, literally just follows your eye socket. You know, this stuff becomes super easy once you guys understand the form and the structure that we built up. And we've already been building this up, right? We've been doing it step by step. So I just want you guys to see how it works when you're just doing it one step at a time, instead of getting overwhelmed and being like, oh my goodness, drawing faces is so difficult because there's so many different things to draw. It's like, yeah, there may be a lot of different things to draw, but if you just draw one thing at a time, right, you're gonna have no problem. And if you keep the form in mind, I can guarantee you're not gonna have any problem drawing this stuff. You just got to, you have to do these practices, you have to do these studies, right? And follow this tutorial. But then after you follow this tutorial, do your own studies, get some pictures, either draw over them or build it up like I'm doing now, and just use those pictures as a reference to make sure that you're doing it right. Okay. And I like to draw on the eyelashes just to show in the direction of the eye even more. And notice how this top eyelid is actually cutting off the iris, and the other one, right, the bottom eyelid was actually, you know, coming up and cutting off the eyelid. So that's another thing to pay attention to while drawing these eyes. Okay. And then we can go ahead and add in a shine or something like that on our eye. And there you have it. eyes in perspective. Okay. So I hope that makes sense to you. Draw that sphere, like before you even start drawing from reference, try to draw this sphere and try to draw the eye just at different angles, just from your imagination, right? So say, I don't know, we want to look down here this time. Just go in and practice drawing the eyelids, right? Understanding where the eyelid is going to start, understanding the type of shape the eyelid is going to make as it wraps around this sphere, right? So just really hammer this down, get a feel for, 3D volume, and you'll get better with it in time. Just understand the different overlaps that are going on. Just understand drawing in these contour lines, right? If you need help understanding how to draw contour lines, watch my form video, okay? And yeah, there's not much else to say about it, but just practice drawing this eye in different angles using this technique. And please let me know how that goes for you, or if this kind of clicks or makes sense, because I can try to teach it in a different way. But this is just how I got much better at drawing the eye, was by understanding that it's a sphere instead of trying to guess whether this line was going to be like curved upwards or was going to be curved downwards. And I remember having trouble when drawing the face in perspective, and I was like, I don't know where the eyelid should go. Shouldn't the upper eyelid always be curved upwards? Not necessarily. It just depends, how you're looking at the character. It might be curved downwards like you see here. So hopefully that kind of helps and gives you understanding why, and the background information. I have started a Twitch channel for just chill drawing and streaming, so I'm gonna start putting that in the description down below so you guys can follow that if you just want to see more behind the scenes, not really teaching stuff, but just more chill stuff, and then just being able to draw with me, ask questions, that kind of thing. But thanks everyone for watching. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll be back with another video real soon. So peace and love, and deuces.